This 12 terabyte hard drive has over 86,000 games on it, and the first thing it tells you to do when you get it is to disable all of your antivirus protections and install a dodgy looking exe file. I'm definitely not going to suggest anybody buy this thing, but I've been seeing it pop up all over my YouTube feed, as well as all over AliExpress and even Amazon, so I just had to get one for myself and check it out. The hard drive itself seems to be a pretty decent Western digital drive, and it also comes with a pretty nice U-green external hard drive enclosure. Given that it runs from an exe file, it's made to work with Windows PCs, and the only Windows system I have is my Steam Deck, so I'm going to be connecting it up to my Steam Deck today, and let's see how this goes. It's called the Super Game HDD, and you can see it has 336 gigabytes left from 10.9 terabytes, so not quite the 12 terabytes that was claimed. So here I am on my Steam Deck with all of my antivirus disabled like an idiot, with the Super Game hard drive connected, and let's launch this core exe file. So this is what the core program looks like. It seems kind of reminiscent of Kodi, if anybody ever used that. We have Hyperspin Attraction, Tekno Parrot. Oh, and there is Kodi. I guess this is some kind of emulation station or Emulec setup. We also have what looks like Launchbox and Playnite, which will be for our PC games. But let's jump into Retrobat, because I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of retro systems we have. I am Ryan Retro after all. Here we are, and it says we have 31,801 retro games here. It also says that I've played 633 games, which I definitely haven't. I guess that's the stage the drive was in when they started cloning them and selling them to people. Let's go through and see what systems we have. We have the very specific arcade, light gun games, vertical games, although it actually says there are none of them, Retrobat games, and now we seem to be into the real actual systems. The first one is 3DO, and curiously, the most played game is Armageddon, the Korean version, which is interesting to me as I live in Korea. So let's run through all of the systems that are on here. We have the 3DO, the Amstrad, the GX4000. We have, I'm going to assume we probably have a lot of Atari systems. We have the Atari 2600, the Atari 800, the 5200, the ST, the 7800, the Lynx, the Jaguar, the WonderSwan Color, the ColecoVision, that's one I'm not really familiar with, and I might be butchering the pronunciation. We have the Commodore 64, the Amiga CD32, the CD-TV, Mega Duck, which is another one I'm not familiar with, but I do like the name, Intellivision, Vectrex, MSX, Xbox. Oh, I'm very, very excited to try some Xbox games. Xbox 360, PC Engine, TurboGrafx 16, NEC PC Engine, TurboGrafx CD, SuperGrafx, PCFX, the Famicom. Oh, we seem to be into the Nintendo systems now. I wonder what Nintendo systems are in here. So we have the Famicom, the NES System Hacks, the Family Computer Disk System, that one's new to me, the Game Boy, the Super Famicom, the SNES, which I'm pretty sure is the same thing, the Super Game Boy, the Satellaview, the Virtual Boy, the N64, one of my favorite consoles as a kid, the Game Boy Color, my first ever handheld. Oh, I'm getting a lot of nostalgia from this already. The N64 Double D, because even something very good gets even better if you throw some double Ds on there. The Nintendo Gamecube, possibly my favorite system ever. The Game Boy Advance, definitely my favorite handheld ever. Game Boy Advance hacks, the Pokemon Mini, the Nintendo DS, the Wii, WiiWare, the Wii U. Oh, it's just system after system. The 3DS. Another one I'm not familiar with, the Super NES MSU1. Kind of sounds like the President's console. The Nintendo Switch. Ooh, dangerous area here. 203 Switch games. We definitely have to check those out soon. The Philips CDI. Oh, we have open bore ports. Ports. Scum VM, the SG-1000. Oh, we're into Sega territory now. With the Master System Mark III. The Genesis, also known as the Mega Drive, which was the first home console I ever played, and where I got my first ever gaming memories. Mega Drive hacks, Genesis hacks, the Game Gear, the Mega CD, the 32X, the Sega Saturn, the Dreamcast, one of my favorite systems to emulate, the Hikaru, which again I'm not familiar with and sounds very Japanese, the Sharp X68000, the Sinclair ZX Spectrum, Neo Geo Pocket and Neo Geo Pocket Color. We're now into Sony consoles, the PlayStation 1, the PlayStation 2, the PSP, PSP Minis, the PS3, the PS Vita. This hard drive really does have everything. The Watara Supervision. And we are now back to the beginning. And what a fantastic collection of systems we've got here. So let's now run through a few of my favorite ones and see how many games they've given us just for a few of my favorite consoles. Let's begin with the PS2. The PS2 has 641 games, very nice. The PS1 has 1,804, that is a lot. There are 333 Dreamcast games. I didn't even know they made that many Dreamcast games. Whether we're looking at the Genesis or the Mega Drive, there's around about 900 and something games. 1,132 Game Boy Advance games, 638 Gamecube games, and 10 different ways of playing with those double Ds. So I think it's now time to jump into some gameplay tests and see if the games load up properly, if they come with any overlays, bezels, shaders, anything to enhance the experience, and let's just see how well organized this drive is. So let's jump into Game Boy Color. This is a system that's usually pretty well optimized and managed on various devices. So let's see what they've got for us. Everything is organized with a really nice box art grid display. This is my personal favorite way to look at my game collection. We do seem to have quite a few repeated games from different regions. For me personally, I prefer a one game, one ROM system. I'm not really bothered about playing both the American and European version of the same game. But I do like the way this is organized. Pretty much everything seems to have its box art in place. We also have the nice title across the top of the screen. One thing I will say is that the hard drive makes a sound every single time you do anything. Even just scrolling through this game list is making the hard drive loudly spin. I'm going to put my microphone up close to the hard drive enclosure as I navigate through this game list and listen to it spin up. That is quite annoying, but let's jump into a classic Game Boy Color game such as Pokemon Yellow, and let's see how it's set up for us. Oh, we have a very nice bezel here. I like the Game Boy Color bezel around the screen. It really makes me feel like I'm playing a Game Boy Color back when I was a kid. I'm having no problems controlling this straight out of the box with my 8-bit DOE controller. All the buttons are working as I would expect them to. Let's see if we have any hotkeys. Oh, curiously, the fast forward button is pushing my right analog stick down. That is a very interesting choice, but we could always go into the settings and configure that however we wanted to. Let's just speed through the beginning of this and see how it plays. Unsurprisingly, Game Boy Color is working really nicely here. There's no performance problems playing Game Boy Color games, and the game seems to be functioning perfectly. So let's now quit out of this and try something else. Getting back into the main menu now, let's jump into a slightly more demanding system such as the Nintendo GameCube. I'm curious to see if my favorite GameCube game, Ace Golf, is here, because it's a very uncommon game. It's known as Ace Golf in Europe, where I played it as a kid, but it's known as Swingerz Golf in America. I'm not sure if Swingers means the same thing in America as it does in the UK, but it's very obvious why it could not be called that in the UK. This time we have a 3D box style, which I really like. I do wish that it was consistent. Seeing a 2D box style on one system and then a 3D box style on a different one, it's a bit of an inconsistency, but I'm not really complaining. Having all this box art good and ready to go really makes a nice experience, and it's something you pay for. When you buy something like this, you want all of the box art to be set up for you in a really nice, organized and neat way. Oh, here it is, it's there, Swingerz Golf. I was not expecting this to be on this system, and I'm very excited. So let's see if we can jump into Swingerz Golf. We have a really nice looking bezel around it. I am impressed by the bezels we've seen so far. I'm a little bit worried by that white screen that just popped up, but it seems to be loading the game properly. One problem is I don't seem to have any kind of input using my mouse, my keyboard, my 8-bit DOE controller. I don't seem to be able to bring up any kind of menu system. I think I'm going to have to just quit out of the game and maybe find where on this hard drive Dolphin is so I can launch it and set up my controller. That is a real shame. Interestingly, the hard drive actually comes with a help and FAQ folder, which lists lots of potential problems with every system. That's something I didn't expect. It's actually really nice. So if we come to the Gamecube file, it actually has some troubleshooting steps here. The troubleshooting step is about crashing, which is not what I was looking for, but it does show me where to find the Dolphin file, which I can open and then hopefully map my controller to. The problem is the emulators folder it mentioned is empty. I'll dig around more later on, but for now let's see if any of the other systems are working better. One that I would really like to try, one that is notoriously difficult on these systems, is Xbox. Xbox emulation is not really as sophisticated as a lot of the other systems, and there's usually problems with controllers and various other things. So I want to see if we can get an Xbox game working on here, because that would be fantastic. I have no doubt that the GameCube games are going to work fine once we set up our controller, because GameCube emulation is actually really easy, and it's one of the most mature emulators out there. Even old phones can emulate GameCube fine. So let's jump into the classic FIFA 2004, a game that I had and loved on my Xbox. It's opening up the Zemu emulator with, once again, a nice bezel. Using the on-screen controller menu here, I can push buttons on my keyboard to see which each button is mapped to. A, B, X, and Y on the Xbox gamepad are literally mapped to A, B, X, and Y on my keyboard. So let's try this out just to see if it's working. We also seem to only have a black screen with white writing on it. Oh, but the game has actually loaded. This is very uncomfortable, and once again, I cannot find an easy way to map it to my controller. But that might be because I'm running a Steam Deck rather than a regular PC, so my setup is by no means optimal for this. So let's put that down to another system which once again runs well, but I'm going to need to spend some time setting up the controls. Xbox 360 is something I've never been able to emulate. I absolutely loved playing it back in the day, but this will be my first time ever trying to actually emulate it properly, so I'm very excited to try this out. Once again, we've returned back to 2D box art again, a little bit of a nitpick from me. Let's see if we can jump into one of the games I really liked on my Xbox 360, Project Gotham Racing. This one seems to be giving me a few problems, with Xenia closing anytime I try to open it. It's the first emulator so far that hasn't been opening nicely. Let's try a different game to see if there was a problem with the game or the emulator itself. Let's try another iconic racing game of the time, Burnout Revenge. Once again, we're forced out of the application, so I guess there's a problem with Xenia. Whether it's a problem with the emulator on the hard drive or whether it just doesn't work well with my Steam Deck, I'm not sure, but this is the first emulator we've not been able to get running. We can scroll through the systems with our trigger buttons like this, and one more system I really want to try out is Nintendo Switch. We have a lot of Switch games here. Let's try one of my favorites, Captain Toad. Here we are using Yuzu, and it seems to have loaded the game up right away. Yuzu is an emulator that's really easy to configure, so I should be able to set this one up to use my Bluetooth controller fairly easily. I've set it up to use my keyboard and mouse, and as you can see, it's working really nicely. Unfortunately, it still didn't want to work with my 8BitDo wireless controller, which I guess is a problem with the Steam Deck. So instead, I've set it up to use my keyboard and mouse, and as you can see, it's working really nicely. I really think if you're going to use this with a traditional desktop computer, everything's going to work really well. So let's now get out of Retrobat and look into the next section, Hyperspin Attraction, which is a front end for MAME, MESS, and Nestopia. So this, I guess, is for all the arcade games. We have a different interface now, but still very nice, very snappy. And you can see we have different collections like a Street Fighter collection, Space Invaders, Soccer, Neo Geo, lots of old arcade collections. This is really cool. These are all your classics. Let's check out the Sega classics. Once again, a really nice theme. 516 Sega classics to choose between, although a lot of them seem to be the exact same game 4 or 5 times. This old Spider-Man game looks fun. Let's try that. There are known problems with this system. Imperfectly emulated features. Graphics. Well, that's quite an important feature, I'd say, but let's press any key to continue. Once again, a very nice bezel on the left and right sides. But once again, I'm having real problems with the controls and it just keeps kicking me out of the game. Let's take a look at Tekno Parrot. No description is given for this whatsoever. It seems to be very similar as the previous one, and once again seems to mostly be about arcade games, like Namco games. There's a game series I've not heard of here before called Wangan Midnight Maximum Tune. There are a few of these and they look very, very nice. I really like the cel-shaded art style. But as is becoming quite a common theme now, we got another error message. It is quite frustrating at times to be presented with these games that look really good and being able to scroll through endless games like this, only to have problems like controllers not working or the games to just not even load in the first place. I would love to hear from anyone in the comments who does have something like this and a more traditional computer setup rather than a Steam Deck like me, and how well it works for you. So please let me know in the comments if you have tried something like this before, and if you are getting a lot more consistent results than I am. Let's move on to Kodi now, something I used to use years ago to watch TV on. And just as I try to load up Kodi, Tekno Parrot is now suddenly loading that Wangan Maximum Tune game. This game is for use exclusively in Japan. Well, I'm close enough. Unfortunately, once again, nothing I press seems to do anything. I'm having real issues with the controls in all of these systems. I mean, listen to me trying. Kodi brings back a lot of memories, although it doesn't seem to have anything inside, so I'm not sure why they included this. Everything seems to be completely empty. So let's just leave this immediately. And let's move on to Launchbox, a very popular application for people to compile all of their games into one place on their computers. So this is the Launchbox that comes on this hard drive. It's very similar to what we saw with Retrobat, but a different theme. It's also quite laggy, so I preferred the Retrobat experience. Going through the systems is just showing the exact same thing, but with a different front end. So I'm not really sure why they included both Retrobat and Launchbox, as they seem to be showing the exact same games. While we are here, let's just try to launch one more system I really want to try, which is PlayStation 3. PS3 is not easy to emulate, so I'm really curious how it's going to go. And I cannot say I'm surprised, but it just quit me straight back out to the menu again. But let's now move on to the final thing, and the thing that I'm most excited about of all, which is the PC games. This is Playnite. You might be familiar with this if you game on PC. Similar to Launchbox, it's a way of just getting all of your games together in one place. It's an application I really, really like. So scrolling through the list here, you can see we have some small games like Angry Birds. We also have big games like Cyberpunk and everything in between. Elden Ring is here, FIFA 19, Final Fantasy, God of War, GTA 5, twice for some reason. The very popular Horizon Chase, Just Cause 4, 4 copies of Red Dead Redemption 2 for some reason, 2 Tomb Raiders, make that 4 Tomb Raiders because there are other versions. We have quite a nice little mix of games here. There's not tens of thousands of them like there are with retro systems, but we do have a really nice mix of games. So let's see if we can get Elden Ring running. Being a PC game, this time we shouldn't have any issues with controller bindings like has been plaguing me throughout this video. And just like that, we are in the game. This is a game that I do own on Steam, but have actually never played because I'm worried I'm going to be too bad at it. Like 99% of my Steam library. The Windows games on this are quite a curated list, except for the repeated entries, so I would expect that all of them should work pretty well. It's not like the retro games where they're giving you 80,000 games and you might have some hits and some misses. Here I think this is going to work perfectly fine. Let's just quickly knock out this scrub with a few punches. Never mind. So is this 12 terabyte hard drive with over 80,000 games worth it? I think in terms of money, yes it definitely is. But do I recommend anyone actually go out and buy one like this? No. I recommend that you buy your games properly, you give the money to the creators who actually made them, and I think that just makes the whole world a better place. I do think this is a really cool idea, and it is really nice to have everything organized with great artwork, lovely bezels, and all be in one place. So I do see the appeal of it for sure. It's been really fun to check this out and show it to you, and I've only scratched the surface with what's on here. So if you would like me to make an even longer video on this, where I fix all these controller issues and then take a lot longer to go through a lot more of the systems, let me know and I'll get that together for you soon. I would love to fix all of the controller and crashing issues and really see what this thing has. But today it was fun just to try something like this out for the first time. I hope you enjoyed sitting here and watching it with me, and I hope you have a lovely day. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you again next time.